So, how do you know when it's your intuition or when you're just reacting? Here's one key thing that you can look at whenever you wonder about that. Now, intuition is emotional, primarily. That is something I will stand by. Your intuition is emotional. And your reactivity is also emotional. So, how do you know when your intuition is reactive and when your intuition is intuition? When it's coming from another kind of realm, let's say, or another part of yourself, like your higher self. Here's the way I look at it. If I'm having an emotion and the thought that comes along with it completely validates my emotion, like if I say I'm really mad at that person and they're an asshole, and I think they beat their wife. That's my big intuition. Well, thinking that they beat their wife goes along with my anger and my wish to discredit that person. It fits into the matrix of my rage and my anger and all of that. So, I need to take an extra look at that intuition before I really believe it. But if my intuition says, this person is a very highly evolved spiritual being, and I'm pissed at them, and I want to think negative thoughts about them, my intuition is disagreeing with my reactivity. That's when, now I'm not saying when your intuition disagrees with your reactivity, it automatically validates it. No, that could just be a kind of self-doubt. It's not necessarily invalidating. But a lot of times when you get intuition, it won't make sense. It'll seem crazy because it's out of the box of your normal thinking. So when you receive that kind of intuition, it doesn't make sense. It even goes against what your ego wants to say about things. Well, that's a time to look at it as potentially real intuition. So that's an important way to start distinguishing. If you've seen other videos about this that I've done, you know that I guide people toward the emotional basis of intuition rather than mental. The way I look at it, we get intuition that comes from whatever, our higher self, our spirit guides, guardian angel, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't really matter. We get that intuition, and it usually first comes as a feeling or a knowing, but not a thinking. There's a big difference between instant knowing and thinking. Instant knowing doesn't require any analysis. It's just there. Okay? So once we get the intuition, then our mind inevitably goes to work interpreting, decoding, saying, why did I get this intuition? Why is it important for me to know this? And all of that stuff. And at that point, we kind of process the raw material of the intuition into something that we can deal with. So anyway, then when we do that, it's really important to not get misled by our reactive emotional patterns. Therefore, the more we clear our reactive emotional patterns, the cleaner our intuition is. Most of us have too much of a stake in being right about what we think is going on, what we think about another person or the future or ourselves or a situation, a relationship. We have too much of a stake in it to see it really clearly. And so the way to know that it is intuition is when it's something a little bit crazy. It's like when I'm working with a client and I get an intuition that makes no sense at all. Like, we're talking about your upcoming divorce, and what comes into my mind over and over and over is shoelaces. And I'm like, and I have a rule. If it comes in 3 times, I kind of, first time I ignore it. Second time I ignore it. Third time it comes in, shoelaces. I gotta talk about it. I gotta bring this into the conversation. So generally what I say to a client is like, I keep getting this image and this word, shoelaces, when we're talking about this. This doesn't make any sense to me. Does it make any sense to you? And about half of the time, the client's like, oh my God, how'd you know? I'm like, what do I know? What the hell? What does shoelaces have to do with getting divorced? And then they tell me, this exact thing has never happened, of course. But then they tell me about the fight that they had about shoelaces that ended up in realizing they both decided to get a divorce. Now, why would that come up? Usually, I tell my clients, this isn't for me, this is for you. This is for you to know I'm actually tapping into something. And that's a big part of what intuition really is, that you're talking to somebody, you get an intuition, and you say that one thing that has an impact, and it kind of lets the other person know that you are tapped in. And another thing is that it gives you information that could be important. But when the intuition is a little bit crazy, a little bit non-linear, that's when you really got to look at it. When the intuition fits into all your biases, if my client is saying, my husband's a jerk, and my intuition is jerky guy, right? That's not necessarily an intuition. That might just be the fact that I am resonating with my client's story. It's not providing any new information, any new revelation about the thing. It might be just telling me, yeah, he really is a jerk, and then you should listen to her more. And if you were doubting what she was saying, quit doubting. It's true. So look out for the intuition that doesn't seem to make sense in the beginning, because when it does, it's magic. It's really cool. So anyway, good luck developing your intuition, and please leave any comments or stories in the comments, and I'd love to see what your experience is with this. Thank you.